Well, the stock market isn't doing so hot. The Dow closed down almost 700 points today, and the Dow and the S&P 500 are on track for one of the worst starts to a year since the year 2000. And a lot of this actually has to do with Apple. So our friend Jason Snell is an Apple expert. He's here to tell us what's going on. Jason, Apple is known to be pretty conservative in their earnings estimates. I mean, the last time that they actually had to lower expectations like this was in 2002. So what do you think happened?
Yeah, in fact, they usually sandbag a little bit. They got a real reputation for undershooting for many years, although not the last couple. If you look at Tim Cook's statement, it sounds very much like China is the primary factor here, that there is something going on in the Chinese economy and it's not good. And you couple that with a lot of really tough competition for Apple in China from the Chinese phone makers that do very well in China and are growing market share. But I think it's interesting that while saying that that was primarily what was going on here, Apple also gave a whole other list of things that might be going on, including the fact that their battery replacement program was very popular, which presumably led to a lot of people keeping their old iPhones with a new battery instead of buying a new iPhone. And I think that there's some question about broader softness on the iPhone, even though Apple says primarily this is about an iPhone shortfall in China.
So talk to me a little bit about this direct correlation between Apple's growth and the Chinese economy. And then also, how do these rising trade tensions play into all this?
Yeah, well, Apple has put a lot of effort into being in China. Tim Cook has said on many occasions that they think China is a long-term play for Apple. They think that China has an enormous potential growing middle class, a middle class the size of the entire U.S. population, and Apple thinks that that's their target audience. But the trade tensions, the fact that the Chinese economy may be stalling, those when your biggest bet for growth is China, and your biggest product is the iPhone, and it is more than 60% of Apple's business at this point. When you have a hiccup on your biggest product in your biggest opportunity for growth, everybody on Wall Street who is not as concerned about the fact that Apple is immensely profitable and generates a lot of revenue as it is about growth, because that's what investing is all about, they start to freak out a little bit. And that's really what's going on here. If something goes wrong with the iPhone in China, it can hurt the entire business, even though, as Tim Cook said in his statement yesterday, the rest of their business is up a lot.
So it's easy to look at all this coverage and think, gosh, Apple is doomed at this point. But it's worth remembering, like you mentioned, that the company is still expecting to make $84 billion in revenue this quarter.
Well, I mean, it has a lot to do with what you're looking at. If you're looking at this from a Wall Street perspective, from an investment perspective, Wall Street really cares about growth. And so the question with the iPhone has always been, like, where are you going to grow iPhone? The last couple of years, the iPhone has basically flattened. You know, that's just the truth of the smartphone market. The smartphone market is kind of flattened, and everybody who's looking at it from that perspective is saying, well, where's your next iPhone? And I think the truth is there's not going to be a new product category the size of the smartphone anytime soon. If you look at Apple from this other perspective, which is, how's it doing as a business? It's doing great. This quarter that we're all talking about as being a disaster because it's going to be a few $1 billion less than they thought, will be Apple's second biggest quarter of all time. They are still one of the most profitable, successful companies in the world.
Jason Snell, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.